Thursday's connectivity, we have the box hamstring stretch and the hands and feet hollow hold, both 4 sets times 30 seconds apiece. The box hamstring stretch is an inverted version, basically, of our seated hamstring stretch, where we want our hands, in this case, on the floor and our feet on a box, and making roughly a 90-degree angle at the hip while maintaining no real more or less than an extended spine, hopefully, preferably a neutral spine, certainly not a flexed spine, and definitely not any flexed knees. So any flexion in the knees is only going to turn off the hamstrings, and being that it's a hamstring stretch, we don't want to turn the hamstrings off. So even if we don't quite have the ability to get to a 90-degree angle or smaller, so if like the straighter we are coming off of the box, the less, or the greater the angle rather is at the hip. So if we only are able to walk our hands back a couple of steps and make our hip angle, call it 120 degrees, then that's all we want to do. We don't want to try to force the stretch. We also don't want to have much shoulder flexion either. So the angle of the shoulder should be, our bicep should essentially be next to our ear. So we're going to keep our torso nice and straight, our arms extended overhead, and walk back as close to the box as we possibly can, trying to focus on pressing our shoulders backwards towards the box. The hands and feet hollow hold is an extended plank, essentially. Think of our nose and toes handstand hold, only on the floor. So our hands are on the floor, our nose, we're looking to push our nose through the window of our arms and create a hollow body position to where the next point of contact with the floor would be the toes. Our workout for the day, heavy on the gymnastics. For time, we've got 200 reps of gymnastics to get through. The Bulgarian split squat, we're going to use the same box that we used for our seated our hamstring stretch. Place one of our feet on the box, perform essentially a lunge with the forward leg. The back leg touching or anything like that isn't imperative. The goal is that we'd like to try to maintain a vertical spine, or a vertical torso for that matter, and get as low as we possibly can. The forward leg could be out a little bit further than we're maybe used to if necessary, but it's something that you can play with beforehand and see exactly what the optimal position for your Bulgarian split squat is going to be. We're going to go 30 each side. So we don't want to go 15, so that automatically raises the stakes a little bit, because I know I said it was 200 repetitions, but if we even it out each leg, then it just becomes 30 total split squats across each leg. So 30 Bulgarian split squats right, 30 Bulgarian split squats left. If we're splitting hairs, I guess at that point we're doing 230 repetitions. Then we go to 30 toe to bar. We can modify this to toe to beam. It could also be toe to ring to sort of bridge the gap between those two, and toe to something that could sort of be an even more hybrid movement. So if we're feeling like we're tapping into the realm of connected repetitions, but the range of motion isn't quite where we want it to be, whether it's getting the toe through the ring or getting the toes to the bar, but the toe to beam isn't really providing us with the stimulus that we would like to achieve on any given workout, the toe to something is always a worthy step. The knee to elbow, arguably I'd say the knee to elbow is just as hard, if not even a little bit harder, in some instances than the toe to bar, because all we really need at that point, once we get the knee to the elbow, is a little flare of the tibia, and then our toes would likely be able to tap the bar if our knees are actually in contact with our elbow. The shoot through, we did these recently. It's a tricky little move. We're going from a push-up support, basically, on a set of parallettes, to a dip support, basically, again, kind of with a grain of salt there, but we're in a push-up position, nice hollow body push-up position on the tops of our toes. And then when we go to shoot through, the goal is to drive the knees up to the chest and then allow the torso to sit through the parallettes and land in a nice extended position. So we're not landing particularly in a dip position where our hips are between our hands. We're looking to, once the torso rolls through the parallettes, we then violently explode the legs and hips out to catch in sort of I always think of like the Deadpool cover, or I guess it's a play on the movie Flashdance, but the extended hips where the hands are on the parallettes, and then you finish the shoot through by retreating back the way that you came. So one shoot through is from the push-up plank to the dip plank back to the push-up plank. That's one. Then we have 10 cones of seal walk. The distance between the cones are arbitrary. If you do them upstairs on the second floor, there's only so much room that we have. And then if we do them on the main floor, there's a little bit more room to be had, but it's a little bit more challenging to pull them off on the rubber flooring. So if you go upstairs, it's just basically how good you are at the seal walk will determine when you count the cones. So typically we'll have like a starting cone and then kind of 3 cones across the floor for a total of 4 cones. So if you start at the first cone and then you were to go to the end where the third cone was, you could either count that as 3 cones. So that would be like an A progression is counting each cone. A B progression would be to count every second cone. So once you pass the first cone, don't count that one. You count the second one. You don't count the third one. Once you turn around and come back to the second one, then you count that. So that would be like a B progression. And the C progression would be to only count the outside cones. So you start at the first cone, you pass the first cone beyond the starting line, you pass the second cone, and then you go to the third cone and you count that as 1. So that would be one way to approach that. But you're going 10 cones, so that could be 10 lengths, or it could be literally 10 cones from start to finish. 10 glute ham raise. This is an extension upon the hip back extension. Banded glute ham raise, definitely encouraged, unless you have this movie down. And even then, it's like the inverted version of the GHD sit-up. It's a bigger range of motion and a slightly more punishing version of the hip back extension, particularly on the hamstrings when done correct. So the banded glute ham raise, underrated modification for those. If you don't have them, then a more aggressive form of the hip back extension, being that we have the hip back extension coming up next, one way to approach that would be to do add a little bit of a distraction to the hip back extension by way of a medicine ball or a plate or even a light dumbbell, sort of hugging it to your chest as you perform the 10 hip back extensions, trying to get up as high as you can, maybe even into a little bit of a kind of a partial range of motion glute ham raise, and then retreating back down and performing 10 weighted hip back extensions, followed by 30 unweighted hip back extensions. Or if hip back extensions are something that you usually bypass in lieu of a modification, whether it's a banded good morning or Superman, you could do the glute ham raises as the hip back extension, only 10 reps, so that, if it's something, like I said, if you bypass those and you would normally skip those in lieu of, let's say, a banded good morning, then maybe you do the hip back extension for the 10 reps in place of the glute ham raise, and then do the 30 banded good mornings or Superman on the floor instead of the 30 back extension. Toe to floor and V-ups. We'll go to the V-ups since we've done those recently, and we'll talk about the toe to floor. We haven't done the toe to floor in a while, but the V-ups we've done. So the V-ups, those can be performed pretty much anywhere. The toe to floor probably the best place to do those is going to be in the warehouse. But if it's something that you feel like you can pull off wherever, then you could do it wherever. But the V-ups, we're looking to have the torso and the legs come up as one until the hands start overhead lying on the floor, feet start out extended, just laying nice and straight. Flex at the hip, torso comes up, feet come up, legs come up, reach, touch the hand to the feet, and then extend back out. That's one. The toe to floor is a headstand, and then it's an inverted toe to bar or toe to beam. We're looking to create spatial awareness, get a little bit more kinesthetic awareness with our body, especially being inverted. And we're looking to go from a tripod headstand, to a flexed hip. We're pushing the hips kind of back away from our hands as we let the legs come down, tap the floor with straight legs, and then extend back up to a headstand. The sort of final boss method of this is to do it freestanding. Freestanding headstand, away from the wall. And then the zero barrier actual toe to floor would be against a wall, where you could use the wall as some leverage and your hips could touch the wall, keep you from falling over backwards. The zero barrier for that is going to be practicing going up away from the floor into a headstand for some practice, instead of starting in the headstand and then lowering the feet back down. Kind of think of it in terms of like a handstand negative. So if we were, practicing some handstand push-ups but focusing on the negative, this would be like doing a toe to floor, but starting on the floor and then practicing raising up into the headstand and then retreating back down, not as controlled as some of the other athletes that will be doing the toe to floor itself.